And now, you're tuned into RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
This is your RBLR Rays podcast. I'm your host, Zach Dobb, along with my co-host, Pat Davenport. Pat, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm feeling the spring vibes. That's what I'm doing. We're playing Dominican baseball as we speak in the Dominican series. We're up 3-1 as we're talking right now, live on the pod. Hopefully we can hold on to that lead, split the series with the Red Sox. Even though spring doesn't matter, it is good to watch Richie Palacios just absolutely destroy baseballs. That's something I'll never get bored of.
He's been doing that a little regularly. He's starting to show a little bit of power, which we kind of knew he had. It's fun to see that continue to come along. Believe the hardest hit baseball he has hit in a game that he hit today. So that's exciting. Be interesting to see if he can continue to put those numbers together as we get into the regular season.
Yeah, I sure hope so. He's a really interesting get for us, and he's a guy that's worked on a lot on his craft. I remember saying when we got him, he was working at Driveline. He's a real student of the game, and I could just imagine that he's good vibes as well. Everything that I've been seeing on socials of him, the way he plays the game seems really fun. I think he's a player that's going to be super exciting for the Rays once he finds a spot on the roster.
Yeah. And I think, it'll be interesting to see what it might take to get him on the roster. But when that happens, we'll talk about it. And we've got a lot to talk about today, actually. I would even say we have a stacked high show this week. Spring training in full swing, and we've got thoughts on all the balls been played so far. And while we're talking about spring training, as we just mentioned, the Rays are in the DR. We've got some thoughts on that. And as we look to the 2024 regular season, we're going to break down the American League East, and we'll give our thoughts on the teams that may be the biggest threats and the teams that are maybe not so much of a threat. And if you're watching us on YouTube, do us a favor and subscribe. Hit the like button. It means a lot. Shows us that you like what we're doing. Shows that you support, which we really appreciate. If you're on Spotify, follow us, drop a rating. And wherever you're watching from, share us around. We're always glad to have you, and the more the merrier. So, Pat, as we get into some spring training talk, some baseball talk, it's nice that we are regularly talking about actual baseball and not theoretical baseball that was once played or will be played. Fun to talk about some real baseball. What's something that you've seen over the last couple of weeks that's got you excited?
Something that's really excited me, Jonathan Aranda. The quality of at-bats that he's been taking has been really impressive to me. He's been really, really good in the minors, and that's no secret to any Rays fan how good he's been in the upper levels of the minor leagues. Has struggled to kind of put together a consistent set of results at the major league level, but that has been in very limited and sporadic sample sizes. People are kind of wondering whether or not he has what it takes to stick on the major league roster, or if he's more of a quadruple A guy. Well, what he's been showing this spring is that he is really, really good hitter, and he can do it against a variety of different pitching. And I wonder if he's given a little more of a run at the major league level, whether it's at some DH spots, occasionally at first base, give Yandy Diaz a day off here and there. He could be quite the productive hitter. I really like what he's doing, how he's approaching his ABs. Jonathan Aranda is going to cause a good problem for the Rays, I think, as we get closer to opening day, whether or not he can land on that 26-man roster or not.
Yeah, and I mean, being a left-handed batter just adds on to that. He it gives him another reason of, another point of value, I guess you could say, to what he's bringing. Hitting to a 162 WRC plus over spring training. Not that matters necessarily, like the numbers don't matter, but it's clear that he's doing what he should be doing. It's what we would like to see him do. And it's getting really hard to deny him a roster spot. Meade has been okay so far in spring training. He's hitting to a 121 WRC plus in spring training and has looked fine defensively. But I don't know, when you see a guy that's clearly mashing, even though it's against competition that, is not necessarily always trying to, get him out sometimes. Sometimes they're just trying to work on something. It's clear that he's doing what he should be doing. So it really is forcing the issue. I think there's a lot of players that are really forcing the issue. I think Ahmed Rosario is another guy that's forcing the issue. And obviously he's got a contract, so a major league contract. So the likelihood of him being on the team coming out of spring training is really, really high. 161 WRC plus so far in spring training, flashing some power. He's hit a couple homers. Another guy that this is what you would expect a guy who you want to get significant at bats, or you think will be getting significant at bats throughout the regular season. You'd like to see them do this kind of stuff. So it is good to see them do that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's reassuring for me that Ahmed
Yeah.
Rosario is getting off to a nice start in spring training, because I think he raised a lot of eyebrows when he signed on with the team with a major league deal a couple of weeks ago. We were all like, "Oh, okay, all right, Ahmed Rosario, thanks for stopping by. I guess you're on the team now. Why?" But it's that versatility that he provides. He's learning to take more reps in the outfield. So if he can play pretty much anywhere on the field, then why not have that kind of Swiss Army knife player if he can be productive? Though I like the numbers that I've been seeing, admittedly, short sample size. And the one thing that I want him to do before we get to the end of the spring training games is to take a walk. He does swing quite early in his ABs. He is quite a swinger, and I'd like to see if he could be a bit more disciplined. I kind of don't mind at this stage. I'd rather he be practicing his swinging than his taking at this early stage, because you want to get your mechanics of your swing good. But if he can just show that he has that discipline in him somewhere, that would be nice, especially as he will be facing some pitches that are a bit wild in spring training, as some are still getting grips on his command. And it is worth noting, actually, that it did come out this week, according to Joel Sherman, that he did get offered $4 million off the Yankees and took less than half
Yes.
of that. He took $1.5 million with the Rays. So like that just in, let's open the folder. Another thing to put in the folder of, oh look, the Rays are a fun and exciting place to play for a player, especially one that's looking to kind of rebuild their value. It is so alluring to go to a system like the Rays that are really good at finding the best in their players and figuring out the best value for their players. So he can come to us before maybe taking a bigger deal somewhere else. So well done to Ahmed Rosario. And the Yankees, turns out, just have no aura. They have no
No.
aura, no drive. Or
No.
maybe his beard was worth $2.5 million to him. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, my beard's worth a lot to me. Maybe not $2.5 million, but I'm just always glad to be able to take something from the Yankees. Just makes me happy. And they need him right now. They may need him. We'll get to that later, but they might could really use him right now with the way things are shaking out for them. So all the merrier. Another guy that I have been excited about and excited about what he's doing so far in spring training is Taj Bradley. Has had a really nice first outing earlier this week, and again had one of probably the better actually results outings of a race pitcher so far this spring training, which doesn't really matter, but he looked good. And it's good to see him coming off of a season where maybe didn't go the way he wanted to. Clearly he attacked it in the offseason and is coming out looking really strong. And I'm excited to see how he'll continue to build on what he did last year with the injuries. We're going to go over injuries in a little bit, but Boz has been taking a little bit of a setback. That's the kind of the news on him, is that we probably won't see him till maybe May or June. So with that in mind, it really does kind of open the door, I think, for, streamlining that road for Bradley to potentially getting on the roster.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that fifth starter battle is super compelling. I don't think it's decided, but it's nice to kind of whittle down an option. It is unfortunate for Bars. You never want to see him get hurt. Am I right in that it was that he tried to pick up one of Yandy Diaz's rights instead of
That
his
is
own?
what I heard. Yeah.
Which, you never want to laugh at someone getting hurt, but that is one of the funnier reasons for
Allegedly.
getting injured. Yeah. So I don't want to laugh at someone getting hurt, but it is one of the funnier reasons for getting injured. A pitcher that I there's a couple of pitchers that I really like. One of them is Tyler Alexander. I really like what he's been doing. I think he's really difficult to read. I think his pitch shapes and his arm angle on his delivery is really tough, especially on lefties. But I think he could be a really interesting piece as kind of a swingman pitcher, whether you need him to start, whether you need him to go bulk. I really like what Tyler Alexander's bringing. And also, speaking of funky lefties, Kershwin Askew has looked very, very good this spring. 2 clean innings. He struck out 3 guys. His command is still his biggest kind of thing that he needs to work on, and he will not start the season in the major leagues unless we get some kind of injury apocalypse. Yeah. But I think there's some really interesting stuff with Kershwin Askew, and just watching him pitch, you go, ooh, yeah, he could be nasty. So just someone to keep an eye on going forward.
Yeah, and the other guy that I think that is someone that I've been watching really closely throughout the spring training is Colby White. And I don't know. Maybe I'm getting too excited too soon, but he's a guy that was, kind of, was seen as one of the top end relievers of tomorrow for the Rays for the last couple of years, and it now seems like he's kind of putting together good outing after good outing. I don't know that he's going to make the opening day roster, but I'm starting to get really excited about what he might be able to do for the Rays. He's a guy that I'm continuing to watch. Basically every time he's on the mound, I'm trying to find a way to watch what he's doing. And I'm really intrigued as to how, what the timeline might be for him actually getting to the majors. I'm really excited to see what that might turn into.
Yeah, absolutely. He has been showing some good stuff. Results have not been fantastic for him in spring, if you look at ERA anyway, but who cares for a reliever in spring training? But his stuff starting to get back together. I would be surprised if he started on the major league roster, but if he could start in AAA, that could be a really interesting indicator of how close the Rays think he is to being ready for the major league roster. Also, Ukita? Ukita? Is that how I'm pronouncing it? Edwin Ukita?
Yes, I think that's right.
He's been absolutely nails in spring training as well. He's only pitched 5 games, but he's pitched 6 1/3 innings and has struck out 11 guys.
Wow.
So that's an exciting guy that we got on a non-roster deal. So just again, we don't want to read too much into results, but 11 strikeouts and 6 1/3 is pretty good, especially early in spring where hitters tend to be a little bit ahead of the pitchers while pitchers are still ramping up their stuff.
Yeah, and that's one of the fun things about spring training is you get to watch these guys that you may have never heard of and bring to the table what the Rays see in them. Because if you're wearing a Rays jersey, there is something cool about what you do. There is something interesting that the Rays think they can maximize, or they just want to give you a chance to maximize it. And getting to see as many guys as we can in spring training be able to kind of go out there and show us what they have is just really fun. And that's what I think, sometimes when you're watching a spring training game, the temptation is to watch it for the first 3 innings when the starters are in there and then turn it off after they leave. And I've done that a couple times myself. But I've got to tell you, if you stick around and watch those later games, you're going to see some guys with some weird arm slots, some weird deception, some good extension. You're going to see some crazy breaking stuff here and there. You're going to see some fun stuff. You may not recognize the name, but you're going to see some fun stuff. So if you're out there and you're kind of a first 4 innings of a spring training game watcher, which many of us have been in, and I am from time to time as well, give yourself a chance to actually sit through a whole spring training game and see what kind of funkiness is out there, because you'll be surprised. There's some fun stuff there.
Yeah, absolutely. Final thing for me on spring is that we have had our first round of cuts. Evan Edwards, Dominic Keegan, Kenny Piper, Mason Montgomery, Nathan Wiles, and Logan Workman are going to be reassigned to minor league camp. So thank you for being with the major league camp for now. Maybe we'll see you down the line, especially the big prospects like Mason Montgomery and Dominic Keegan. But we'll see you down the road. See you. Thanks for your couple weeks of major league camp. Hope you found it fun.
Yeah, Workman was a guy that I was enjoying watching pitch too, and I was a little sad to see him get reassigned. But there's just another guy that we can be watching in the minors that I think has got some interesting stuff, and I'd like to see him, see if he can continue to work his way up the ladder a little bit in the Rays system. I'm just curious to see what he's got. He showed me some good stuff here in spring training, so excited to see what he may do.
And with the cuts, it's not always about performance necessarily. Right. It's sometimes just about hey, we want to give these guys reps, and they're more likely to get the reps in minor league camp than they are in major league camp at this stage as we're whittling down the roster. So yeah, I wouldn't read too much into cuts in terms of how they think or rate the players that they've cut.
Yep. And the only other kind of newsworthy thing that's happened so far in spring training is Josh Lowe is dealing with a hip issue. He said that it was something that he was kind of struggling with during the offseason. It kind of flared up again when he got to camp and decided to just handle it now, which I'm grateful for that. I don't want players trying to, whether it's a pitcher or a hitter trying to play through injuries. It never works out. Any kind of short-term gain you get from playing through injuries is always going to be reaped backwards when you have to, have a longer injury, a longer injury absence. When you have to actually get the work done, you should just get done. So nothing to be overly concerned about. They still expect him to be available for opening day, but he's taking care of this now in the time in which you should take care of it. So there's some, people got a little bit nervous when they saw that he was, out of the lineup and had an injury, but it does seem pretty minor, and they do expect him to be ready for opening day.
Yeah, let's all chill out. We don't need him to be playing games because we don't need to win him right now. He'll be a valuable piece to the roster that when we do need to win games. So let's just not worry while we don't need to win any games. Get him off his feet. Let's chill out. Caution in spring training is of the utmost importance. We don't want to be depleted going into opening day. That's the last thing we want. When you talk about spring training, the main objectives are get back up to your stuff levels, whether that's velo, spin rates, etc. If you're a hitter, just get all your mechanics back on the go, get a couple of reps in the field, and above maybe all of those things, don't get injured.
Yes, please.
So let's avoid injuries wherever we can, especially to a player that's expected to be as important to the 2024 Rays as Josh Lowe. Let's chill, get him off our feet. I'm completely fine with this.
Yeah, and I will say the Rays so far have done a good job staying off the injured list this spring training, and hopefully that continues. I'm just going to knock all the wood. I'm just going to knock all the wood, but so hope to see that continue. The last thing that I wanted to mention about spring training before we move on to some fun games that they're playing in spring training in a different country is I have seen a lot of Aaron Savali slander on the timeline that I just wanted to address because people are they're losing their minds over a couple spring training starts and over some poor performance at the end of last year. That is really not indicative of how well he actually has pitched. We went over it in his player review. The fielding independent pitching stats are better than when he was in Cleveland. They are in general really good. He's had some bad luck. And the man, just so everybody's on the same page here, the man has not yet pitched 50 regular season innings for the Rays. So if you are out there concerned about Aaron Savali, don't be. He's going to be fine. He is. I believe his start's over for today, and he pitched pretty well today. So just to further prove my point, he's going to be fine. So anybody who's worried about him out there right now, do not be worried. He's going to be fine.
Yeah, he gave up 1 run in 3 1/3 today. Listen, you know me. If any listeners to the pod know that back in November, I was like, listen, next year is going to be the year of Savali. I'm telling you, he was striking so many guys out. He was just giving up a ton of hits. He was getting a bit babbipped, I reckon. So let's just chill out. Listen, nobody jumped on. Well, maybe people did, but people didn't. I didn't see people jumping on Uwasawa. When he had a rough opening outing. People weren't like, Uwasawa's a bust because in his first outing with the Rays he got shelled. It does not care. Does not matter, people. Like, we're not in the business of results until March 28th. We're not in the business of results. We could go 0-20 in spring and I would not care because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Let's all chill out. I'm not going to listen to any results-based disparaging of players at this point. So, I mean, spring training is kind of narrative ball because if the results are good, oh my god, he's the next Babe Ruth. If results are bad, I don't care. It doesn't matter. But I'm going to ride or die on that hill. So leave me alone.
Some if we want to continue to play narrative ball and continue to talk about the one of the biggest battles of spring training, Curtis Mead hit a no-doubter just now, and then Jonathan Aranda, not to be outdone, hit an RBI double immediately afterwards. So, I mean, that's the stuff you're looking for right there. You've got two guys that know they're fighting. I mean, I don't think it's any secret that they're fighting for a roster spot, and they are fully aware of it and going blow for blow in the Dominican Republic, which is a really cool thing that the Rays are doing. They're playing 2 games in the DR. They played a game last night, which they lost 4-0. But again, the results don't matter. It was a great atmosphere. If you watched any of the game, any of the pregame and postgame stuff with the players, Jose Siri was having an absolute blast, as he should. Just the vibes were immaculate, and the vibes continue to be immaculate today. Do you want to see more of this, maybe even some more regular season games going and being played elsewhere?
Yes, I mean, that should be of no secret to anyone, just judging by my accent. Base like I would rather I wish we had more than one London series. Can we
Yeah.
do a Manchester series? Can we do a Glasgow series? Can we just like go all can we do what the NFL does and just like almost make a London based team? The answer is no. But yeah, absolutely. We want to grow the game. We want baseball to be as big as possible, as accessible to people as possible. And for people in the Dominican Republic to see Major League Baseball is always amazing. And you never know, there could be a kid in the crowd who watched that game and watched Cedane Rafaela hit that massive bomb and go, I want to do that. And then suddenly they become the next superstar. It's about inspiring the next generation. It's about giving an outlet for people. That's why we have sports in general. It's an outlet for people to get invested in emotionally, to take up their thought processes mentally, to socialize, to entertain. And the more we can bring that to people, the better it will be.
Absolutely. And I think when you talk about bringing it to places like the Dominican Republic, which has been such a like genesis point for MLB stars over the years, like taking it to more of these places where that have been a feeder for the game, I think is a beautiful thing. I think we should be doing it more. All these places in Latin America where stars are being born every day. Bring Major League Baseball there. Show them, and not show them, they know what it is, but bring it to them so they can experience some of the greatness that they are producing. I think the more we can do stuff like that, the better. I love seeing it. I'm glad the Rays are going to be a part of it because they've got some guys from the Dominican that are having a great time while they're there, which has been really fun. I hope that this becomes a fixture. I'd love to see the Rays. I'd love to see the Rays do this every year. I don't know how any of that stuff works, but I hope this is something we can start to see, in the future. What I would really like to see is every team go play at least one series somewhere other than America, which is probably maybe too much to do. But I think that would be really fun for the game. Go play in Japan. There's so many places where baseball is being built up. Go to those places, play games there. Like continue to drive the interest there. I think we should take the good that is already being done there and just expand it out.
Yeah, I mean, the World Baseball Classic last year was
Yes.
such a phenomenal success, and it's grown and grown every time that it's happened. And this year, well, last year felt like the kind of apex of what it could be with Japan and Trout and Otani facing each other at the end. But there were so many great stories like Yu Chang, and there was Italy caused a couple of upsets, and loads of players in Great Britain. It gave Harry Ford. Harry Ford got to visit the Queen. So like we got all of these lovely things that happened. And it's because of baseball internationally. And again, I'm not the most common thing in the world, a British baseball fan, but the World Baseball Classic got people to care about baseball for a little bit here in the UK. Yes. It was on in schools and people were rooting for the UK, even though we weren't very good. So like, you never know. Maybe we could be good one day. We got a couple of nice players. Harry Ford's a nice prospect in the Mariners system. We also had, I think Jazz Chisholm thought about playing for Great Britain for a minute.
I do remember that, yeah.
So if we could just steal a couple of more players via colonialism, then maybe GB will be the next World Baseball Classic champion. But either way, like even all the countries in the World Baseball Classic, like Italy and Panama and places like that, the Netherlands should be ideal destinations. And why not go somewhere that hasn't produced a Major League Baseball player?
Absolutely. Go play in the Middle East. I mean, like there's, I played on a dirt baseball field in the Middle East for 7 or 8 years when I was a kid growing up. So, I mean, you may not think it, but baseball's out there. I played in a travel ball tournament in Kuwait while I was over there. So like, baseball is out there, and the more people that you can continue to bring into the game, the better it can be. And, continuing to talk about growing the game, one of the last things when we want to talk about for spring training is the spring breakout game, which is something that's really exciting. I believe this is the first year that this is happening. And it's going to be really exciting. It's an opportunity for some of the, biggest stars that are, kind of moving up in the minor league system, some of those like up and coming prospects to get to showcase themselves. It's happening from March the 14th to the 17th. And there's going to be about 16 games that are going to be played, and a lot of really fun prospects are going to get a chance to go and show their stuff. Some notable Rays prospects that made that roster are Keyshawn Askew as a pitcher, who you mentioned earlier, Hayden Herb,
Hayden Herb,
friend of the program. He's also going to be out there. Dominic Kingan and Kenny Piper, previously mentioned from the catching. Some of our favorite infielders, Carson Williams, Xavier Isaac are going to be out there. Chandler Simpson's going to be out there. Really nice write-up on him from MLB.com. Mason Hour is going to be out there. Shane Sakasi. I definitely butchered that.
Sasaki.
I butcher names like nobody's business. A lot of really fun guys that are going to be out there. Evan Reifert's going to be out there. Marcus Johnson is going to be out there. Trevor Martin is going to be out there. There's some really fun guys. So if you have the time, if you're available to watch those games, I believe on the 16th is going to be one of the games where the Rays players are going to be playing. Do yourself a favor, watch that. There's some really fun guys. Names you're going to be seeing soon are going to be a part of that.
Listen, I know it's not a results-based business and it's still a spring game, but like it's going to be, I would put the Rays all prospect team up against any in baseball to be really good, apart from maybe like the Orioles. If you're wondering why the likes of Meade and Caminero aren't there, I believe it's because I don't think they've graduated prospect rankings yet, but they'll be on the major league camp and they'll be competing for a major league spot. So that's why I don't think they're there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, even Caminero, who has had a bit of a rough spring, is one thing we didn't mention. I wouldn't say he's been bad, but he's definitely it's pretty obvious that he's not 100% ready for major league stuff yet. It's pretty obvious he needs a little bit more seasoning. Some of his at bats have looked a little rough. Swinging, not making contact. It's clear that he needs more time to season. But that being said, the talent is there for him. He could start turning it around really quickly. And the expectation, I think, is him to compete for major league at bats at some point this year. I think it may be closer to June and July than to March. But I do think that we're going to see him at least competing for major league at bats very soon.
Yeah, and even though I don't think he's going to start the season on the roster, I still think the Rays will keep him on the major league camp for as long as they possibly can. He might not get cut until the very last second because they'll want to get him as many reps against major league quality pitching as they can, just to get him to aid his development, basically. So expect him to get cut late in spring if I was a guessing man, which I am doing right now. So just keep an eye on his development as spring goes forward, but do expect him to go to AAA.
Yeah, and I do think he will go to AAA. I don't think there's any reason for him to go back to AA. I think he will probably spend the season in AAA for maybe the first 2 or 3 months, but I think it's going to be really good for him. To continue to get that seasoning. A lot of pressure was put on him when he was brought up at the end of the year, and he performed admirably, but I think the additional seasoning is going to be really good for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you are out there right now and you look at your wardrobe and you would say to yourself, I need some more seasoned type of stuff in that wardrobe. I need some stuff that I know is tried and true and going to be excellent no matter what. I have a place for you. I have a place that you can go and get the best stuff for all of your Tampa Bay sports. That is shop.rblrsports.com, where you can get 10% off everything you want to buy there with promo code flappy. You can get Buck stuff. You can get Lightning stuff. You can get Rowdy stuff. You can get Ray stuff. There is all kinds of great stuff there. And I hope that you look at your wardrobe and say, I am going to improve it. I am going to get the best possible stuff, and go to shop.rblrsports.com, where you can get 10% off everything with promo code FLAPPY, FLAPPY.
Yeah, you're not going to need to cut them from your wardrobe roster at any point. They're going to be sticking around on the top level of your wardrobe at all times. They're going to be ready to go at a moment's notice. You're not going to need to cut it.
No, not at all. Now that we have gotten through some of our thoughts on spring training, we're now going to transition to some thoughts on some other teams, not the Rays, not for very long, but we're going to talk about them a little bit. The other teams of the American League East. There's 4 of them. Some are more of a threat than others. But we're going to talk about maybe the one that is the most threatening first, Pat, I believe you've got some thoughts and some notes on our least favorite team in the division, the New York Yankees.
Yeah, yeah, they're picked by many to win the division this year. The New York Yankees are a good baseball team. I am loath, I am loath to say.
Ugh.
The New York Yankees are a good baseball team. The Rays and Orioles and Blue Jays were all helped out by some crazy underperformance and injury bad luck by the Yankees last year. They massively underperformed what they probably should have done as a team, but they were beat up, they were injured, and they did have some poor BABIP and a bunch of things like that. But there are reasons to be high on them this year, but there are also reasons to be concerned about them this year. The Yankees' main kind of port of call coming in to this offseason was our outfield is a mess. We had to rely on Jake Bowers and Billy McKinney for a lot of the season to play crucial outfield roles for us. And we did have Aaron Hicks, and then we let him go, and he did all right for the Orioles. So it's like,
Very
what
humorous.
are we doing?
Really enjoyed that.
And they are trying to transition their new wave of prospects, which are always overhyped in New York system. They do have some good prospects, but whatever good prospects they do have always get absolutely ballooned out because the Yankees of the past 10 years or so have not graduated many good prospects to the major league level. Let's look at Clint Frazier. Let's look at Miguel Andujar. Let's look at who else are we supposed to trade for Mike Trout again? You know, those kind of players. But yeah, they do have a wave of prospects that they're trying to kind of bring into the team, like Oswald Peraza, like Anthony Volpe, eventually Jason Dominguez as well. It was supposed to be his kind of job to be taking in center field before he got hurt. Oswaldo Cabrera, he's in the mix as well. They're all trying to mix those guys in. But their main mandate was to make their outfield a real outfield and not like some kind of plastered together mishmash monster. It was monstrous as well, but in the bad way. So they went out. They went out and got Alex Verdugo from the Red Sox in a rare Yankees-Red Sox trade. They also famously acquired Juan Soto from the Padres. And then they also went out and picked up Trent Grisham as well, who will likely assume a kind of fourth outfielder role. All of these guys make their outfield better. Juan Soto, one of the best hitters in the game. I don't need to tell you, you already know. Aaron Judge, one of the best players in the game. He will transition to center field, which is scary. You'll get good production from him. I think he'll be a war machine. I do worry about how durable he will be playing center field regularly. He is a big guy and could be prone to some injury. He'll definitely need days off, and they'll need to manage his workload in center field carefully. Okay, maybe putting him at DH occasionally, put him in a corner occasionally. I don't think he can play 150 games at center field, and I really hope I'm not proved wrong, because if he does that, he could very much win the MVP because he's that good. Their outfield defense will be okay. It will not be great. None of these guys are great fielders. Judge was good in right field. I don't know how well he'll translate that to center field. And then on the infield, they've got DJ LeMahieu at third, Volpe at short, Gleyber Torres at second, Anthony Rizzo at first. This is a decent infield that can play some okay defense, apart from maybe Gleyber Torres. Anthony Rizzo's a good fielder over at first. It's a good infield, but very thin. If DJ LeMahieu gets hurt, then you move to Oswaldo Cabrera, who's kind of going to be taking the utility infielder role. Again, he's not a very good hitter, so you got to watch out for that. And then Austin Wells and Jose Trevino are going to be your catchers, who are both fine. Like, don't worry, they're both fine. And then Stanton will DH, apparently in the best shape of his life. I can't wait for him to, be really good to start the season and then have to run and then realize that he's not in the best shape of his life, because that's just how Giancarlo Stanton's legs are at this point. He is a threat with the power, but he is declining quite heavily on the old aging curve. My opinion on this lineup is that it is a good lineup. particularly at the top. I think Judge and Soto and Rizzo and LeMahieu are a really good top of the lineup. And then you got Stanton cleaning up for them as well. I think that's really good. But if Judge goes down or Soto goes down, or if you just pick one player, it starts to get wobbly quite quickly. And they don't really have tons of depth to back them up. Like I said, Oswaldo Cabrera is kind of the backup infielder option, which he's not a great hitter. Trent Grisham is a poor hitter if he has to come in as an outfielder and play regular ABs. So it's a bit thin out there if any of them get hurt, which very much could happen. A lot of these guys are prone to injury, and they have been injured a fair amount in the past. So we got to account for that. So if they're healthy, they're going to be a dangerous team. If they're not, how well will their depth cover for them? Because right now it's not looking great. The rotation has the best pitcher in the AL, Garrett Cole, at the front of it. They acquired Marcus Stroman as well, who was very good for the Cubs last year. I expect him to do pretty well for the Yankees this year. His ground ball rates are always really good. He's good at eliciting ground balls. If Volpe is playing well, if LeMahieu and Rizzo are playing well, then the infield should do well with those amount of ground balls hit at them. If he's limiting fly balls, then he should be fine, because, we have fly balls in Yankee Stadium can be a problem. That's why I think Stroman's a good fit for them. And then after that, they got Carlos Rodon, who was atrocious in a very injury-riddled season last year. He can't be worse than he was last year. I don't know if he can be great, though. I don't know. I've not seen in spring anything that's particularly encouraging in terms of velo or spin rates, but he's got time to catch up, so the jury's a bit out on him. And then you've got Nestor Cortez, who will be fine, I imagine. And then you've got probably Clark Schmidt as your fifth starter. Again, I think this is a good rotation, particularly with Cole and Stroman. But again, if anyone goes down, you start to get into those depth options. It gets a bit more difficult. The bullpen, I think, is good. You've got a lot of good names in there. Clay Holmes is really good. I really like Loisaca, even though if he can get his command in check, Loisaca's good. Ian Hamilton's showing some potential as well. So it's a good bullpen. And actually, I trust the Yankees. They're really good at developing bullpen arms and bringing up bullpen arms. I think their pitching development's actually pretty decent. I think, to cut a long story short, too long didn't read. When healthy, this team is a favorite for the division. I think they're going to be, if they stay out of injury trouble, in the mid-90s for wins. But if the injury luck goes against them, if Garrett Cole or Judge or Soto goes down, any one of those three, then they're going to be hit maybe harder than any other team in the division by an injury.
Yeah, I mean, they've already had one with Oswald Peraza, who is one of their, was in the running to be a backup shortstop behind Volpe. He's hurt and is probably going to be out for a decent amount of the season. So, while any team can get hurt, but when you don't have the depth, and I think it's a really good point that you've made, really, really clear, is that the depth is not there for them if you lose guys. And the team is very top heavy as far as the offensive value they can provide. They're really, banking on a bounce back year from Rizzo after they let him play with a concussion for a month, which is really nice of them to do. And they're hoping that Stanton can continue to play really, kind of find some form. They know Soto's going to be good. They know Judge is going to be good. Gleyber Torres is pretty good for them usually, and he provides some good offensive value. But if some of those guys that, they're hoping are going to have bounce back years don't, then the lineup looks even more top heavy. When you go to the pitching side, again, we want to talk about top heavy. Like, the guy at the top is really bringing up the rest of that rotation, especially when you get down towards the bottom. So the one thing I think that can be, concerning with the Yankees when you get towards the end of the year is if you get them to the postseason, they get to the postseason, they do have a good team for the postseason because you can rely on Cole. Stroman's pretty good. You can figure it out after that, for the rest of it. But you have some really solid stuff there. Your bullpen's pretty good, and you have guys who can do it in the postseason. So if they get there, they're a dangerous team. I'm not necessarily that scared of them during the regular season. The Rays play them in the first month of the season. Even though we're going to the stadium, I expect us to win that series. I really do. And I'm not overly concerned about them in the division beyond what, like, I guess overly concerned is maybe a little bit too aggressive because I just hate the Yankees because they are a good team and they do have good players. But I don't know. I'm just not could this team win the division? Sure. They could. I'm just not that scared by them. I'm really not. And maybe it's just because the bias of the fact that I hate the Yankees is coming into play. But I'm just really not scared of the Yankees.
The ceiling for this team is really high.
Yeah.
I think the potential that this team has, if everything works for them and they stay healthy, they're really dangerous. They've got maybe the 2 best hitters in the league.
Yeah.
They've got the best pitcher in the league. But the floor for the payroll that they're spending is way lower than it should be. And I think the difference between the Rays and the Yankees roster construction is I think the Yankees actually have a higher ceiling than the Rays, but I actually think that the floor for the Rays is way higher than the Yankees because if an injury happens, the Rays are way better prepared for that than the Yankees.
And I think all you need to do to see that evidence is go look at last year. Look what happened last year. They lost the top end of their lineup. They imploded. The Rays lost their generational player, which we don't need to go into any more than that. They still made the playoffs.
And we had our rotation was
our
destroyed.
rotation literally just disintegrated before our eyes. And the Rays still found a way to make it to the postseason. And that is why I will always say roster construction is so important. It does not matter the really nice names you have at the top of your roster if the construction beneath of it is not solid. And in my opinion, the Yankees roster construction is not very good. And it was really, really bad last year. We saw that with the sort of nonsense they had out there in the outfield at times during the season. But they didn't like the additions that they made. They got 2 guys to play outfield, which is great, but they really didn't go find any more depth. The guys that they're relying on that are younger to move up did not play well last year at the major league level. Even Volpe, who was kind of the best of the bunch, still was not. He was good defensively, won a Gold Glove somehow, and was really was okay, but like offensively was bad. So the construction underneath of Judge, of Stanton, of Soto, of Cole is just not strong. And if any of those guys give out, then the whole thing falls in because there's no superstructure underneath it. It'd be like if you built a deck and you forgot the 4x4s. You got some really nice deck boards. It's really, 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 really pretty deck boards. But if any of those give even a little bit, the whole thing is going to fall in. So
yeah, and I think my last point is I think this is why projections are so high on the Yankees because they very rarely assume injury. They will update when an injury happens, but before the season starts and injuries happen, they don't go in expecting any injuries to happen. There was a really interesting piece on Fangraphs that detailed how they are going to try and consider depth go into their projections in years future that I really highly encourage you to go read. But they're basically admitting that their projection system is flawed because they do not account for injuries across a season. They update once injuries happen, but don't kind of project that of the season ahead any injuries are going to happen. They say the team as is would perform as this, and that is why the Yankees are projected by a lot of systems to win the division.
If you go to FanDuel right now, which I don't necessarily recommend that you do, but if you're just looking for, I usually go there when I'm looking for win totals for the season because that's that gives you beyond like the projections. That gives you what Vegas thinks, which I've always find interesting. The over-under wins for the New York Yankees is 94.5. Would you take the over-under on that?
I actually think that's really close to what I'd project for them. I'd probably predict them around 95 wins, but I'm gonna take this. You know what? I'll take the. You know what? I'm saying this. I'm gonna take the over actually, but only just. I think they're gonna go 95.
Just. I'm taking the under. I think they're going to win about 93 games this year. I think that there's going to be stretches where this team is going to look invincible, and it may even be early. It may, or it could be towards the middle of the year. There's going to be stretches where this team, you're going to say, how are we going to ever beat these guys? And then you're going to see exactly how, when either guys get hurt or guys just, if Judge and Soto have a bad month, you're in trouble. You're in really big trouble. So I think they're going to end up winning 92 games. They're going to be, I think they are going to make the postseason and they are going to be a threat, but they are, in my opinion, they're not the biggest threat in the American League East. And I'm going to get into who I do think is the biggest threat in the American League East, and that's the Baltimore Orioles. The upstart Baltimore Orioles, some might say, won 101 games last year. Baltimore Orioles won the division last year. Baltimore Orioles, but lost in the division series, getting swept out of the postseason in kind of dramatic fashion, kind of unexpectedly by the eventual World Series Texas Rangers. They had kind of an interesting offseason. They let go of a couple guys that, were a big part of their team. Their deadline acquisition, Jack Flaherty, is gone. Fujinami, a guy who pitched some good innings for them, is gone. Kyle Gibson, gone. Adam Frazier, gone. DL Hall and Joey Ortiz were traded away, but that trade away, it brought back probably their biggest offseason acquisition and the biggest thing that we said that they might need, which is bringing in Corbin Burns. They also brought in Craig Kimbrell to help shore up the bullpen because Felix Bautista is still expected to miss most of the season with an injury. He's currently on the 60-day IL. Don't expect that to change anytime soon. They also brought in Nick Maton for some middle infield versatility.
Worst of the Matons, Phil Maton.
The worst of the Matons. Yes. So when you look at this roster right now, you're going to see Adley Rutschman at catcher. No surprise. James McCann, maybe one of the better backup catchers in baseball, is out there. You're going to see Ryan Mountcastle and Ryan O'Hearn playing first base. You're going to see one of Colton Wong, Jackson Holiday, playing second base. Maybe you're going to see a little Ramon Urias, maybe a little Jorge Mateo. And then at third base, are you going to see Jordan Westberg? Maybe. Are you going to see Gunnar Henderson? I don't know. Are you going to see more Ramon Urias? They've got a lot of options in that middle infield. Young guys like Holiday, Westberg, and Henderson, specifically Holiday and Westberg, fighting kind of for an opening day roster spot. Both are projected right now to make the opening day roster. Holiday, I think, is a bit more of a long shot. I wouldn't be surprised if Wong starts in the majors out of the offseason. Out of spring training, and Holiday maybe comes along a little bit later. Westberg, I think, has a better chance to stick at the major league level. And then when you go to the outfield, you've got Austin Hayes, Cedric Mullins, Anthony Santander. They're pretty set out there. Not a whole lot, of questions out there. Although Kyle Stowers is also, vying for some time out there. Colton Cowser, the number 19 prospect, and Heston Kierstad, the number 32 prospect, are also fighting for some time there. So there's a lot of things to like when you look at this lineup. One of the things that's been said a lot during the offseason is that the Orioles are going to regress. I've even said it in previous times. And when I started looking into all of these guys, I was going in looking for like red flags, flashing red signs. They're going to regress. I didn't really find them. Most of the statistics show that most of what they were doing was kind of in line with what they did throughout the minors, kind of in line with what you might expect them to do. Nobody was really doing anything like, it's not like you saw Ryan Mountcastle hitting 300. He was hitting for power. That's what you'd expect. Not a lot of average, but hitting for power. That's what you'd expect. Gunnar Henderson did kind of the same thing. He's really fast and he plays good defense and he hits pretty well. That's kind of everything you'd expect from the minors that came up. Adley Rutschman played really good defense, and he hit more than you'd expect for a catcher. That's kind of what he did all through the minors and what he's been doing in the major leagues now. Really not much to regress. And so while, initially I kind of came into this expecting to see a bunch of red flashing signs of regression, I didn't really see that. And so if you're looking for a team to be a little bit concerned about from an offensive perspective, I think the Orioles are the team I'm a little bit concerned about because there's not a lot of holes in the lineup. Almost everybody there's contributing something to their lineup and something of value. Even the veteran guys like Ramon Urias and Jorge Mateo, Urias plays plus, not just good defense, plus defense at almost every infield position. And Jorge Mateo is learning to play center field to provide more value, and he's got plus speed. So there's really good stuff to like there, and that's really concerning. What is not concerning when you look at the Baltimore Orioles is the pitching, which is kind of a mess right now because their projected number 2 and 3 starters are both hurt right now. Means is expected to be back sometime in April. Bradish is a big fat question mark. He's got an issue and I believe it's the ulnar collateral that he's dealing with, which is usually words you hear before Tommy John. So he's going to try to pitch through it and get the shots that he needs and try to, rehab through it and keep pitching through the season. I don't know about you, but that sounds like a recipe for disaster. I think we're going to end up seeing him being hurt at some point, which I really don't want to see. I think he needs to go take his medicine and go get whatever he needs done and get it taken care of. But at the moment, he's saying he's going to pitch through it. So without those two, the projected rotation out of spring training for the Orioles is Corbin Burns. Good. Grayson Rodriguez, Dean Kramer, Tyler Wells, Cole Irvin. You're doing this. That's not good. The bullpen is kind of a little bit of the saving grace of the team. You've got Craig Kimbrell, Mike Baumann, who had a really good year last year. Yenier Cano, who was the number 2 guy last year, who now gets to continue to be the number 2 guy because you brought in Craig Kimbrell. So that's really good. Danny, I'm not even going to try. Columby. CNL Perez, Dylan Tate, Julio Teheran, by the way, they brought him in as kind of an interesting. I haven't heard that name in a while. He played for the Braves for a while. They brought him in. He could get a spot start here and there. So there's some good stuff going on in the bullpen. But my question is, how many games are they going to be going to that bullpen very quickly? They're putting a lot of faith right now in the development of Grayson Rodriguez. They need him to be good, real bad. They need him to provide value and to go out there and get outs and get a lot of them. They need him to pitch 160, 170, 180 innings this year. And I don't know if he's ready for that, but at the same time, he probably should be at this point in his development. This is kind of the year where you'd like to see that happen. Last year, maybe he was put into the fire, maybe more than you'd like, but this year, it's kind of time. It's time to see what this guy is made of. And I gotta say, looking at some of the things that were happening towards the end of last year, he was getting better as the year ended. He started out really, really bad, but as the year went on, if you go to Savant and just look up the xWOBA he was allowing, the rolling throughout the season, you can see it getting better as the season went on and really getting lower. And it kind of was coming up a little bit closer to league average towards the end of the season, but it was heading in the right direction. So I do expect him to be pretty good. The problem is right now he's your number 2. If he's your number 3, I think you're in really good shape, but he's not. He's your number 2, and Corbin Burns is your number 1. And you have no idea what you're going to get out of Bradish. Means you hope he'll be fine and be able to come in and be that number 2 guy. But it's always hard to know when you've got an injury and a pitcher coming back mid-season. It's always kind of weird to see what happens there when guys don't get their full spring training buildup. So we'll kind of have to wait and see. And if you're relying on Dean Kramer, Tyler Wells, and Cole Irvin, I think that is not the place you want to be. I don't think that's the place the Orioles would want to be. Right now, they're being projected by FanDuel, if you go there right now, for 89.5 wins. If given that over-under total, what would you take?
I would take the over. I think I've got some party pooper feelings about the Orioles. And it's weirdly about the offense. Last year, they had a 105 WRC plus as a team. Everyone goes on about how good the Orioles offense was. They, as a team, were a bit above league average. Mm-hmm. They were actually not even in the top 10 in that stat in baseball. And they really, really overperformed just by their record in 1-run games, for example.
Yeah.
And their X-win and losses compared to what they actually did. I just think last year was a bit of a mirage where everything was going right for them. They leaned so heavy on Cano and Bautista. And everyone was like, this is bound to be an injury, and they managed to last long enough without it being an injury that it didn't hurt them. I'm taking the over. I still think this is a team that can win 90 games. I think, but I'm not super bullish on them. I think they're a 92, 93 win team. Where are you sitting on them?
It's about the same, about a 93, 94 win team. And the reason why is because I think that you make a good point about they had a really good record in one-run games. And usually when you see that, it's because they have a good bullpen. That's like what they had with Bautista and Cano. And if they did not add Kimbrel, I would agree with you, and I would see some regression there. But I kind of think because they added Kimbrel, they're going to still be pretty good there. And they're still going to perform, still going to perform pretty well overall. I don't know. I just kind of like I went into this looking at that team and expecting it to not be that good, and I was kind of surprised by some of the things that I found. The big question is the pitching staff, though. The starting pitching is the big concern. I think if they get to the one-run games, they're in a good place. The question is how many games are they going to be able to keep that close? The offense is pretty good. But can they keep it close? If they cannot keep it close, they're going to struggle mightily. I don't think this team is built to overcome large deficits. And unfortunately, with the starting pitching that they've got, they may run into that. So it's just going to be a question of can Grayson Rodriguez perform up to what they want him to be, and can they get anything from Means will probably be fine, so they're probably going to get some from Means. But what do you get from, and can they get anything from Bradish? I think that those are the big question marks for the Orioles right now. I'm going to take the over. But it's going to bear watching, especially to see what comes with Bradish and to see if they make any moves at the deadline to improve pitching if they don't think he's going to be available.
Yeah, I'm completely with you on that. I think they're not as good of a team as they were wins and losses wise last year, but they're not as bad as like below 89 wins.
Yeah.
So I think they're in the low 90s somewhere. I think they're a wild card team.
There's two other teams in the American League East that we have not talked about yet. One of them, I don't think is making the playoffs. What do you think?
Well, by law of averages, we can only have, I guess you could have 4 AL East teams make the playoffs these days, which is crazy and, could very well be the case, actually. Let's talk about the Red Sox. Oh, boy. Okay. I take no pleasure. Actually, I do take some pleasure.
I take some pleasure
in talking about the Red Sox. Okay. The Red Sox are not bad. Okay? Let me make this clear. The Red Sox are not awful. Okay? In many other divisions, in either of the central divisions, they'd be right in the mix. But they have to play the Blue Jays, Orioles, Rays, and Yankees on the regular, who are definitely better than them. They have some really fun young players on that team. Tristan Casas, I'm a big believer in. Jarren Duran looked really good last year. I really like what he's doing. We know Devers is one of the best players, one of the best hitters in the league. And then they've got people like Ceddanne Rafaela and Wilyer Abreu, which are really interesting prospects in the outfield. They've acquired Tyler O'Neill from the Cardinals, who is like, we all thought, oh my God, the most toolsy outfielder in baseball. And he's not really translated that into much, really. He's still got the tools. If the Red Sox can unlock something in him, he could be a special player. Don't know if he can do it, though. They've still got the likes of Bobby Dahlbeck lying around on the team. Connor Wong is a decent catcher that I quite like. Yoshida is going to basically be a full-time DH, and he's a good hitter. So the lineup looks all right, actually, if probably potentially very streaky. Lots of streaky hitters in there, in the likes of Duran and O'Neill and even Casas. So let's talk about Trevor Story, who I actually am thinking is going to finally have a good year for the Red Sox. I think he's been really unfortunate with his injuries. He is a really good fielder, and he had never had the chance to prove it because of injury, and then having to play second base to Xander Bogaerts. What are we doing? Who has now moved to second base, by the way, because he's not that great of a fielder.
Oops.
And the Red Sox also traded Chris Sale for Vaughn Grissom as well. I'm really interested to see how Vaughn Grissom works out. He had a lot of prospect stock in the Braves org. I wonder if getting a full run at second base for the Red Sox would be good for him. Again, very volatile young lineup, basically, with Devers and Casas being the only two that I'm truly believing in. as like consistent all the way hitters. But even then, Cassis is still young and could go through a pretty bad cold streak. And then the rotation.
The rotation.
I mean, they gave Brian Bayo an extension, which is a good thing because he's good.
Did.
And he's a really exciting young pitcher who has a lot of potential. They brought in Lucas Giolito.
Wah, wah.
He's gone. You never want to see someone get hurt, but he's not going to be in the rotation. That sucks. So then, currently listed as on their depth chart as number 2 is Nick Pavetta. Ooh, like most contending teams would want him as their 4 or 5 starter. He's their number 2 starter. Can you believe last year Corey Kluber was their opening day starter?
I did not know that, and that is a weird. That is so strange.
Like in the year of our Lord 2023, Corey Kluber.
Yeah,
it might have been 2022, but either way, it was recently. Then you go into Cutter Crawford, who's fine.
I like Cutter Crawford.
Probably you'd want him on your back end of your rotation. He's your number 3. And then it becomes a bit of like maybe this guy, like a bunch of swing men kind of auditioning for a rotation spot in Garrett Whitlock, Tanner Hoke, and Winkowski as well. So it's a bunch of guys kind of who are swing men auditioning for a rotation spot. And that is for the 4th and 5th spot in the rotation. So it's like, all right.
Yeah.
In the bullpen, they got rid of their best reliever in Schreiber. Last year, he was their best reliever. So now, again, there's some guys in there like Kenley Jansen can be good. Chris Martin can be good. And then you go into the likes of Zach Kelly, Brian Mata.
You'd like it better if Whitlock and Cutter Crawford were in the bullpen.
Yeah.
You'd like it a lot better.
It's just like, it's not finished. It's not a finished team. It's like you've started with good intentions, but the pieces aren't finished yet. It's just not a fully together team. And there's loads of volatility in that team.
Yeah.
Devers is the only guy you can really trust out there to be an anchor for the lineup. And even then, he's not like that good of a fielder. Story could be good. He's a good fielder, but you don't know if he's going to bring the bat. Like, it's just not a finished team with tons of volatility. This is a team that would not surprise me if it won like 90 games, but it also wouldn't surprise me if they won 70. You know what I mean?
77.5 is the win total if you were to take a look at it right now.
I mean, I think they're probably like a 80 win team. I think
they're about a 75 win team. I'm going to be real honest with you. I mean, the thing that kills me about the Red Sox is going into the offseason, the ownership and the new GM who they got rid of the previous GM and brought in a new guy, and their words were, we're going to be full throttle this offseason. And I mean, like, if that is the Red Sox full throttle, I think we can just permanently never have to be worried about the Red Sox ever again. If that's their version of full throttle. So comical. I like Garrett Whitlock. I like Cutter Crawford. I would like them better if they were bulk guys in my, like, if you told me that I could have those guys as like maybe your 5th starter every once in a while, but really going to be kind of your 3 to 4 inning guys coming out of your bullpen and they could maybe close every once in a while, I'd like that a lot. They don't need to be starting games long term. They really don't need that. I don't think they need to be starting games. And Bayo is probably going to be fine, but I mean, it's just incomplete is the word you used. Really good word to describe this team. Incomplete.
Yeah, it's just, but then like there is a team that could win 86 games here. Like if Story hits well and Vaughn Grissom progresses and Casas is as good as we think he's going to be.
Casas could be an X factor for them. I will give you that.
And Darren Duran and Tyler O'Neill convert their tools into a consistent season. Like they could let their lineup carry them to like mid-80s wins. Like that could be a thing that happens. It's just relying on a lot of things going right.
Yeah, and usually if you go into the season with your battle plan being everything's going to go right, that's not usually what you want. to do, because when you talk about the difference between the ceiling and the floor of this team, the ceiling is like, I think 90 wins is the ceiling. I don't think they could possibly win more than 90 games. The floor is like in a bad place. Like, I mean, there's a dark place that this Red Sox team could go to if things really go south quickly. And it doesn't seem like they're going to make many moves. They're talking about this year as a bridge year now, even though they said it was going to be full throttle. This team could get to a dark place real quick.
Yeah, agree. I think in like 3 years, if the right moves are made, this team could be quite dangerous.
That's what the Boston media wants to hear. That's what they'd love to hear right now.
But can we count on them making the right moves and making sure that all their prospects develop properly? And like, can they figure out how the heck they're going to fill out a competent bullpen? I don't know. I mean, this is a bridge year for them, because this is a real kind of litmus test year for the Red Sox to go, right, how messed up actually are we? Like, are we really bad, or are we like, all right, we can build on this?
Yeah. I'm very curious to see what this year holds for the Red Sox, and I will be watching. I intend to. I expect to be enjoying it. So
their defense is going to be atrocious. If
very bad. It's going to be fun. Put the ball in play if you're playing the Red Sox.
They were the worst in the league last year by Fangraphs defensive rating. So
let's talk about the Blue Jays.
Let's talk about the Blue Jays. Those boys up north. And
to be honest with you, I don't have much to say about them, because the truth is, it's kind of the same team. They lost a bunch of guys that they brought in to kind of maybe change things around. Whit Merrifield, gone. Brandon Belt, who's still a free agent, by the way, gone. Hyunjin Ryu literally went back, I believe, over to Japan. Yes. Jordan Hicks is gone. Matt Chapman, 100% gone. Adam Simber, who is one of their better relievers, is gone. They brought Isaiah Kiner-Falefa and Justin Turner and Daniel Vogelbach and Joey Votto.
Okay.
The team is pretty much the same as it's been the last several years. It's Danny Jansen and Kirk behind the dish, Vlad Guerrero at first, Spencer Horwitz maybe will vie for a little bit of time. David Schneider had a good year last year and Kevon Biggio will also play some second. I guess IKF is their starting third baseman. Maybe it's Justin Turner. I don't know. Bo Bichette is going to play shortstop, and he's going to throw the ball over the first baseman's head about 10 times a month.
But he's going to lead the league in hits, though.
But he's going to lead the league in hits, but not win the batting title. He's going to lose to Yandy Diaz again. And then in the outfield, it's going to be George Springer if he's healthy, Kevin Kiermaier if he's healthy. Dalton Varsho is also going to be out there. He's pretty good. Utility Santiago Espinal is going to play some utility for them. Again, Justin Turner is probably going to be your DH. The rotation, again, pretty much the same as last year. Kevin Gausman, Jose Barrios. I said that name wrong. Chris Bassett. Kikuchi. And Alek Manoah is currently their fifth guy in the rotation right now. In the year 2024, after what we all were witness to what happened last year, they're giving him currently the prediction of being their five guy. If he can't hack it, Bowden Francis is the guy that they like, that they will probably try to bring in. The bullpen, again, it's pretty good. Jordan Romano is good. Eric Swanson is good. Tim Meza is good. Chad Green is good. Yimi Garcia is good. Trevor Richards, Silverterre Fox, if you know, you know. Genesis Cabrera, Mitch White. Like, there's some good names in there. But it's just so uninspiring to me.
Genesis Cabrera, in particular, is an 80-grade name, regardless of his pitching ability.
It's a great name. What's about 40 grade is the aura of this team. There's none. Doesn't exist. They've been saying that the movie was coming for a couple years now. We haven't even gotten through the trailer. Like, this team has accomplished like so little. They have not won a playoff game in like 5 years. Like, they've not won the division. They've not finished higher than second in the division in like 7 or 8 years. This team is just doing nothing and going nowhere, and they're making no moves to do anything to get them out of this situation. They're just kind of like, yeah, we'll do it again. We're going to bring in Joey Votto.
I'm glad you said it. Because I was about to go on the exact same rant, but I'm glad you did it, because I was like,
disappointing. Like, what are we doing up there in Toronto? Like, you got these guys. that are out there, and that you supposedly like. It's so funny because it is a great example of like the Rays have like if you were to just to look at the what you might say the mindset is of these teams. We're gonna have a core that we like, a couple starters that we like, and a couple bullpen guys that we like, and we're gonna do that every year and give us a chance at a title. The difference between those two teams that operate in a similar way, like, or maybe not actually operate, but you could maybe look and say they operate similarly, is there's been no consistent production to get to any kind of winning. Like this is a team that every year finds a way to be less than the sum of their parts. Every year. Like you look at this lineup and you're like, what do you mean they're like middle of the pack in runs scored? Like, but surprisingly, they are really high in WRC plus. They're like top 5 in WAR as a team, but they're barely making the playoffs. Like, I don't know what to say other than this team is every year less than the sum of its parts. Their win total expectations is what? Like it's 87.5, which is by the way, the same as the Orioles, which is crazy to me. 87.5. I'm smashing the under. I'm just going to tell you, like, I don't believe in this team at all.
I mean, I'll take the over. I think they're like 90. I think they can get 90.
I guess.
But like, I'm so glad you said it. It felt like someone had read my mind and took the rant right out of my mouth, because the Blue Jays have been the most overhyped, celebrated depiction of mediocrity in recent baseball memory. I've never seen this level of okayness, like good enough, be celebrated in baseball as much as they did. Yeah, Vlad Jr.'s on the cover of the show. We could have had Randy Arozarena, and my conspiracy theory is that if Randy beat Vlad in the home run derby, he would have been the cover on the show.
Maybe.
Vladdy was like fine last year, but all he accomplished was win the home run derby. Like everyone talks about how rubbish the Rays have been in the playoffs, and it doesn't work. The Rays system just doesn't work when you go to the playoffs. Well, what does the Blue Jays system work? No, they've been worse.
At least the Rays have been in the World Series
and the playoffs. Like, what are we doing? Like, I just like a 1 FWAR for Vladdy last year. 1.
He had a 6.3 FWAR in 2021, 2.8 in 2022, 1 in 2023.
Like, I don't know. Like, and I think Bo Bichette and Vladdy are coming to the end of their like team control. Their window's closing, brother. And if they don't do anything this year, if they don't do anything this year, if they make the third wild card and get bounced again, I think that's it. I think next year they've got to start trading pieces.
2026, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is a free agent. Let me see if I can find Bichette.
I think it's just like, what? I think Bichette's even sooner. I just
2020, both 2026. They got 2 years to figure it out.
Yeah.
And they're probably going to want extension sooner.
Yeah. And I don't know if the Blue Jays will pay him. They might.
Probably not. They probably pay one of them. Who are you going to pay?
Okay, let's play devil. I'd pay Bo Bichette over Vlad Guerrero. But let's play the game. Let's pretend Blue Jays signed Shohei Ohtani. They actually did it. They were a finalist for him. He did get on that flight. Would you be scared then?
I would be scared of them next year when he can pitch. This year, I would be a little more scared, because that's kind of that's kind of the move that they would need to make, is really make something significant. Because like, I guess I just need to see some like pulse from them, because yes, they're making the playoffs, but they're doing like nothing there, and they're not performing at a high enough level in the regular season to me to justify only making the playoffs, in my opinion. because they're just being okay. They're being good enough to make the postseason. And this window is closing. I don't know what the future holds in 2026 for this team. The next level. I just think that the Blue Jays are going to see their window close.
Yeah, and like right now, there doesn't seem to be no effort to extend the window. I think that's the big thing. There's no plan that is visible to us that shows that they're trying to make the playoffs every year beyond the core, perhaps departing. Who's next after Bo Bichette? Who's next after Vlad Guerrero Jr.? Who's next after Kevin Gausman? Like, what's the extension plan? At least the Rays, they have set the precedent that they are going to have a revolving door of players, but that is in the interest of being good for as many years as possible. Not let's open the window for 6 years while we have a core, and then when they all depart for free agency, we close the window again.
Yeah, and that's why the plan that the Rays have to just continually make the playoffs and that being the goal for them can work for them because their window isn't closing. Like, if you look at what the Rays have right now, their window is not closing in 2026. Their window is much longer. They have more guys that are coming up. They've extended guys. Their window is going to be open for significantly longer. If the Blue Jays don't make some extensions happen, their window could shut really quick.
Yeah.
Anyway, I feel like I've talked more about the Blue Jays than I want to, but
angry.
It's just disappointing.
I think it only makes us angry. It only makes us angry because they're just really hyped up as a team by the marketing machine, and they don't do that much. They've never won a division. They've never looked particularly dangerous.
Yeah.
Right. If we're ranking the division, are we being complete homers and saying the Rays are winning the division? Is that what we're saying?
I actually thought about this for quite a little bit because I think that the floor, when you look at the floor of each of these teams, right, I think it's tied between the Orioles and the Rays have the highest floor of these teams. But I think that the Yankees have the highest ceiling. So I think it's a really close race actually between the Orioles, Yankees, and Rays. And while I'm not overly scared of the Yankees when it comes to regular season matchups, they're going to win a lot of games. So I think it's very, very close. I am going to say I think the Rays will win the division only because I think that some of the pieces that they are bringing up are going to start to perform really well. And if they don't, there's backups. They have depth to cover that. And I think that the likelihood is higher that they'll perform well. But the Blue Jays could very easily win this division. The Yankees, as much as I hate to say it, could very easily win this division. If you held a gun to my head, right now I'd rank it Rays, Orioles, Yankees, Blue Jays, Red Sox.
Okay, I would go Rays, Yankees, Orioles, Blue Jays, Red Sox.
It's a tight division. Yeah. The top three there, and as much as we just dumped on the Blue Jays, they could be really good if they get the performances they're supposed to out of those guys. They could be really good. I'm just going to believe it when I see it. So that's just kind of where I am right now with them.
Yeah, I think the Blue Jays, Orioles, Yankees, and Rays will all finish somewhere at least between 90 and 97 wins.
Yeah,
they're all finishing in that bracket.
And next week we're going to break down the team we didn't break down. Because that is the name of this podcast, the RBLR Rays podcast. We're going to give you a full breakdown of the Rays going into 2024. So stay tuned for that. That's what's coming next week. That's going to be our show for today, though, guys. Thank you for everybody coming and being a part of what we're continuing to do here. Please like and subscribe to see all the fun stuff. We're going to be doing some really fun stuff this season, so do subscribe. Do be around for this. Also, you're going to see some stuff coming out very soon about a potential RBLR Rays Fantasy Baseball League. So be on the lookout for that. That is why you want to be following on the socials. That is why you want to be following, liking, subscribing, because cool stuff like that you could be a part of. So stick around. Thanks for being here. Raise up.
Raise up.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, Please remember to like and subscribe.